Let me know when you see the recording message.
I do.
Go for it. Thanks.
All right. Welcome, everyone. So I'm so excited to be here presenting to you today. This is Kickstart Your Champion program in 8 weeks with Power Platform for Teams and Viva, kind of a niche topic, but actually we're going to cover a lot of ground. So I hope you'll be excited about this. You're all here in the adoption track, so that makes me excited because, of course, adoption is near and dear to my heart. So I'm clearly not going to read this slide. It has a lot of words, but I will provide the deck to the host here, and hopefully you'll be able to download it because it does have a sample, some samples that I hope you'll be able to use. But just a little bit about me, very quickly. I have been in this Microsoft ecosystem forever and ever. I started out as a SharePoint person before it was called SharePoint back in the STS Team Services days. I'm dating myself. But yes, I'm old. There is my contact info, and you'll notice there's a little picture of me, and that is me in World of Warcraft. I'm a big World of Warcraft player, have been for many, many years, and that's my little character, Gardellarina, and I play on Zangarmarsh for the Alliance. So if anybody here plays World of Warcraft, look me up. And fun fact is, my first ever job, my real job title was Camel Handler. I worked for the Bronx Zoo in New York. So you can't tell I'm from New York by this accent, I know, but that was my real job title. And some days working with SharePoint and Champions, I still feel like I'm handling camels, but don't tell them I said that. So what to expect from today's session? What I hope we're going to do is talk about the synergy between champions and citizen developers. So I guess you didn't know we were going to talk about citizen developers, but I think it's really important in the context of champions and how we're going to take advantage of that using Power Platform for Teams and some other things. We're going to see how using Power Platforms for Teams and Viva Connections can help engage more champions. And I'm going to give you a couple of real world stories from my experience as a consultant. I'm a consultant for a company, Witham Smith and Brown, the Witham Digital Division. From my experience here and prior, how we can engage champions using those. And we're going to step through an 8-week roadmap of suggested activities and materials. And within the deck that I'm presenting, you're going to see that there's an actual champion guide. There are starter slides for you to use and take. So hopefully you'll be able to take this and make it your own. So I really want you to come out of today's session with some materials you can kind of hit the ground running with. So those of you who have been around and who have attended Microsoft champion calls and such have probably seen the next 2 slides I'm going to show you, although they're colored a little differently. And I'm doing that for a reason, because I want you to see, I want you to think about what champions are and maybe expand your idea of who a champion can be for you at your organization as you're rolling out these M365 technologies. So this slide says champions will evangelize and help train their teams on new ways of working, etc. And it says the responsibilities of a champion, right? Pretty standard slide. As I say, if you've been around, you've seen this one. This is a Microsoft slide. I didn't make it up. And the second Microsoft slide is this one. How do champions make a difference? And this talks about what champions will do: create a groundswell and enthusiasm, build a circle of influence, bring, new ways of working, identify business challenges, right? So pretty standard stuff. Now let's look at this. I took these slides and said, well, if I was thinking about this in the context of a citizen developer, how would that make a difference? And let me stop there and say, by citizen developer, I mean, it's a term that's getting thrown around a lot, especially regarding Power Platform, right? Which I absolutely love, totally into Power Platform. But I just want to be clear about what I mean when I say citizen developer. And that is somebody who is building stuff, doing, they're building little apps, or maybe they're customizing a list in SharePoint, or they're going above and beyond the normal stuff we expect kind of our average user to do and doing more, and they're excited about doing that. So that's what I mean by citizen developer. I don't necessarily mean somebody who is doing JavaScript things or whatever, that's not what I'm talking about. So if I take these slides and redo them, it's interesting what you come up with, because here citizen developers are not evangelizing. They're actually creating and helping train their teams of new way of working. They're creating new ways of working. They don't build in awareness, they build solutions. And they don't have responsibilities, although they do, so much as they're taking actions. So really interesting here. How do citizen developers make a difference? I asked myself. Well, they create a groundswell by not adopting new ways of working, but by actually improving ways of working. They're actually trying to do that. They identify business challenges and develop possible solutions. So they get feedback from the project team and sponsors. So, the idea here obviously is that I'm pointing out the fact that citizen developers are often doing the things that you want the champions to get people to do, and they're already doing them. So if you already have some citizen developers, when I first started my career and I was starting a champion program, to be very honest with you, I often felt that in some ways citizen developers were the enemy, because they were like rogue, like, oh, I didn't tell you to do that thing yet, why are you doing that thing, right? But as I've matured, my practice has matured, and I've kind of opened my mind a little bit and been around now doing champion programs for a very long time. I've realized that we need to bring these people into the fold, because a lot of them are doing the things we want people to do. And so I make them champions now. I bring them into the champion program. So, and I just want a little, thinking here in the beginning, but I want to look at champions versus citizen developers. So in a traditional champion program before, when I was doing champion programs, I wasn't necessarily looking for a techie person, right? And in fact, you want people to be champions who aren't. You want people to be champions who can represent the people who are less technical, but they still, are going to use these tools and they still want to learn. And very often when I was looking for champions before, I was looking for people who were already good communicators. They have some influence. They may not have, a title or whatever, but they do have influence. People look to them and they know how to communicate well, and they would model, the new behaviors we wanted. Citizen developers may not have those skills. You may overlook them because they may like to just, do things, kind of be more individual contributor kind of people. But again, don't bypass them. That's the point of this slide, to say, previously we were looking for these categories and champions, but really citizen developers can be champions too, even if they have, like, for instance, they're very interested in a discrete business process, improving a discrete process, or looking at specialized tasks. They're not kind of looking overall. That's okay. We need them. We're going to talk about why. And finally, both champions and citizen developers are subject matters experts in their group's business processes. They are willing normally to train others to use new tools, right? So if I developed a little app, I'm usually kind of excited to show other people, right, about it. They are both modeling new ways of working, and they both serve as change agents. And so these four things are the most important things for champions. Now, from a strategic standpoint, why should we make citizen developers part of our champion program? And that's where teams and some of these other things are going to come in. So do I think that adoption and change management is not, traditional adoption and change management is not important? No, it's eminently important. However, it's often harder to sell it. It's often harder to explain it. And it is definitely harder to measure the return on investment. Whereas when you're working with citizen developers, what you're really working with normally is business process optimization and automation. And guess what? Those are sexy words that, senior people like to hear. It's much easier to sell that and to measure the ROI for that. Because it's very easy to say, oh, well, we automated this one process and it saved us 100 hours and that translates to money and people, that's very easy, right? So, but what I do know for sure is that very often these things that we're doing, these citizen developer things, provide the quick wins that get people excited about the whole package, the whole tool, the whole new way of working. And it just sort of forms a very a good cycle. What do they call it? A virtual cycle, a virtuous cycle instead of a vicious cycle, right? You've got that virtual cycle going on. So that opens the doors now to talk more about what we would normally consider traditional adoption and change management. So champions plus citizen developers equals win, I like to say. So what we're going to really get into today is new ways to engage champions that you may not have thought of before. And I like to call them the 3 C's. So the coordination, collaboration, and communication, right? So we've got, all the new tools, plus the tools we had before to engage our champions. And I think for me, you should never underestimate the power of the new shiny thing when you're trying to engage your champions. Because, I think probably if you're here, you're in the adoption track, you understand what I'm talking about, you've been around, one of the biggest challenges to adoption is the new shiny thing, right? Like you're trying to roll out, you're trying to teach people about Excel online, and then somebody comes in and says, yes, but this new feature of Smartsheet is the best thing ever and we should do Smartsheet. And then 3 weeks later, somebody comes and says, we're going to use Asana. And then, and I'm not saying anything bad about any of those tools, but, it dilutes the enthusiasm, it dilutes the effort. And people are always running after the new shiny. So you know what? Let's do the new shiny too, is what I say. And M365 has plenty of new shinies. And the other thing is, very often if you've tried to do a champion program, and maybe you started a champion program, you rolled out some of the services, and you kind of like came into a lull, and this often happens. You had your initial champions, they were excited, a bunch of them left or whatever, you need a new story to tell. We need to talk about new stuff to get people excited again. It's so important. So let's talk about some new stories to tell. So story number 1 is about Power Platform for Teams. And I think this is probably one of the it's the hero, it's the quiet hero here that we can really do some great stuff with. So I don't know, you may or may not know this, but there are certain things that, require, premium connections or premium licenses that lots of folks don't have. Lots of organizations just don't, they pay for their E1, E2, E3, whatever, E5, and they don't go and above and beyond that. And they don't want to, they don't have approval, etc. However, that limits you to do certain things, right? To make certain connections, like make connections to Salesforce or make connections to, other, line of business systems. You don't have that ability. But when you do a lot of this through Power Platform for Teams, you actually create this stuff within Teams. You can use it. You can use these for free. It's pretty amazing. You can do Dataverse, you can do a bunch of stuff that you just can't do unless you start it and contain it all in Teams. And I'm not going to get into that today because that's a separate, it's a very technical topic. But what this allows you to do is do some amazing things. And this can turn your champions into superheroes. And this is a great place to get your citizen developers involved. So I'm going to tell you a story about an organization that I worked with. This is a very old nonprofit, over 100 years of service in New York City. And during the height of the pandemic, like, all other organizations, they had to do this COVID testing and, vaccination tracker for New York City. It was a New York City requirement. And I know that Microsoft had put out an app, but for various reasons, they didn't want to use that one, and they had some specific needs. And, you know, the needs that they had were going above and beyond what we could do with a SharePoint list. So what I helped them put together was a Power App with a Dataverse backend, but we did it all within Teams. So we used Dataverse for Teams, which gave us row-level security, which is really what we needed, an easy way to manage row-level security, given the confidentiality of the data that we were handling. And we created a simple Power Apps dashboard. And to be honest, that organization was barely using Teams at that point. But because we embedded it in Teams, and because it was so easy to update, and I was able to help these folks do it in in a way that they could maintain it, right? That really got everybody excited in using Teams. It was just because they had to go there to fill out the app all the time. I don't know how often every week I think they had to fill out the form and say their status or some such thing. And it got everyone using Teams, and it got people excited about the potential. So this was amazing. So for many of them, it was their first introduction to Teams. And by the end, about 80, they did have an option. If they didn't want to do it online, they could like mail it in or do some other thing for people who were like, really like, no, my information, that's okay. Totally understand. But by the end, about 85% of staff were using it. And that is huge for that organization, which had a lot of folks that were kind of not trusting technology. And with the knowledge that they gained from that rollout, a citizen developer, we had created also a telecommute request app, but we were able to turn that over to citizen developers, and now they're doing it all, maintaining it and adding to it all themselves. So super exciting. And again, this is a new story you can tell, this Power Apps for Teams. So if your champions don't know about it, do a session and introduce them to it, because you're going to get them kickstarted. It's really exciting. So now let's talk about Viva Connections in terms of champions. So what's really cool about Viva Connections is champions will see how easy it is to surface the news from SharePoint sites and target it to the right people, and get employees to take immediate action, which is often something, that organizations need. And you can use Viva Connections dashboard to deliver targeted and actionable cards to your champions to keep them engaged. So we'll talk about this. So what do I mean? So if you haven't, let me go back to this slide. I'm not going to dwell on it, but I know the gentleman who went before me talked about Viva, so I probably won't, need to dwell on it. But when you implement Viva Connections, you get this thing called the dashboard, and in the dashboard you have these cards. And you can control what's on these cards. And they're really cool. They look really cool on mobile devices. They're really optimized for mobile. And they're targetable. You can use audience targeting, the same audience targeting we've known how to do in SharePoint before. And you can click the card, and the card can do like up to 3 levels. You can click a button and it will show you another thing. And then you can click a button that can show you a little form or something, however you want to do those 3 levels. So, and there are this is not like free form, can't do whatever you want. There are restrictions because this is not meant for developers to do, although you can develop your own cards, but that's a separate topic. So anyway, that's what this Viva Connections thing is all about. So I want to tell you another success story. We had a champion that I really would call a super champion in an organization. We rolled out MN365. This is a North American franchisee with over 100 franchise locations in the US and Canada. They have a lot of frontline staff, a lot of turnover, in frontline staff. And they had a need to constantly communicate new directives, new policies, things like that. And so this super champion uses Viva Connections adaptive cards to streamline communications for the frontline workers. And we literally showed this person how to do it, and it was unbelievable. And everybody got so excited, including the C-suite staff, because this was a big pain point in the organization, and it's something very easy to see and understand. Because sometimes C-suite people have a hard time understanding things. No, it's very easy to see and understand. And the workers, click this little thing to acknowledge that, click the card that they say, oh yeah, I read that now I have to do XYZ instead of ABC, so time-sensitive announcements were going out. So that was a huge,
Hello?
huge win. Yes, hello. Hello? Oh,
Can you
I
hear
don't know.
me?
I can hear you. Who is this? All right. But
Can you hear me?
yes, we can hear you, but I don't think you can hear us.
Yes.
So
Yes. Can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Did you have a question? All right. So and I'm going to stop after this next slide, just these next couple of slides, for if anyone does have a question, by the way. But so that's about the champion using the cards and then getting other people excited about the cards and wanting to adopt and wanting to put news in SharePoint so it could be on cards, right? But I have found that you can use these cards to keep your champions engaged too, to help them feel seen. So again, as I said before, the cards can be targeted to audiences, and your champion should be your most excited audience, right? And what I recommend is for, if you implement Viva Connections and you do have the dashboard, you target one card to champions always, and you rotate that card to correspond to this 8-week program that we're going to talk about, and of course beyond. So always have a card for champions that only champions can see, because that's, people like that stuff, and your champions are doing a lot of work that other people aren't doing. Very often it's not part of their job description, so it's sort of extra. So you do want them to keep feeling seen. And by the way, speaking of feeling seen, I just, talking about burnout, I think it's important to understand that your champions will get burned out. It happens. Champion burnout is real. So this is where I think Viva Insights can help. So if you're not familiar with Viva Insights, if you're in Teams and your organization has enabled it, and you go on the left side, you will either see the little icon for Viva Insights, or you may need to click apps and choose it from the apps and, put it there, pin it there. But Viva Insights, I think, it's just one more thing we can offer, but I would encourage your champions to use it, because I think it definitely helps. This is my little dashboard, definitely helps with blocking your time. So I think champions should make sure to book focus time, both for champion activities that we're going to talk about in a minute, and just, for their normal work. Teaching them how to do this will help them, teach others. And there is now a new feature about this wellness library, I think is super cool in Viva Insights, which is just taking various articles. And again, you'd have to see if your organization has enabled this, but taking various articles having to do with wellness and culture and presenting them right here within Viva Insights. And a lot of these are really useful. They were articles actually I had already read, and I had seen, and it turned out that they were here as well. So again, just from the standpoint of somebody who's been doing champions a long time, champion burnout is real, and you should anticipate it and be thinking about how to help your champions overcome it. And I think that Viva Insights is definitely one way to to do it. So I am going to take a break here because we do have some other things. I have a lot more coming up for you, but I do see some questions in the chat. So champion burnout is real, especially since they're volunteers. Any best practices on how to show their value up the chain? Yes. So, so I think a couple things. One thing is, again, quick wins are important to show, but I would always show quick wins in the context of having the champions present them. So what you want to do is things like at an all-staff meeting, say, don't you present here are quick wins. Have the champions who participated in those quick wins, you know, who drove those quick wins or suggested that thing, have those champions be presenting. That's very kind of in your face, right? It shows, no, here's the champion. That's what they did. That's what this program did, right? The other thing is, I'm going to show you, we're going to go through an 8-week program. The 8-week program has very specific activities that for you to help your champions do. And of course, you will add others. We'll talk about that. But the good thing about that is you can actually track it. So you can say, of our, 27 champions, 25 of them did this, this, and this. You understand? So again, it's about metrics. So to show the value, you're going to show the metrics of what they're doing. And then you're going to say, and they did that, and here's what we got. So here, we created this thing that did X, Y, Z, or we solved this collaboration problem. We can now collaborate with our vendor. We have a team where we collaborate with our external vendors and they submit documents, whatever it is. So that is, to me, that is how you show the value of the program itself. And you know what? You let the champions talk too, because, they obviously, to employees, especially if they're a little more junior, becoming a champion, a change champion in any kind of program like this, whether it's, M365 or any program, that's an opportunity for them to grow and be seen. And we want them to, it's always good to let them, even if you go have a meeting and do a round robin and record 1 minute of each champion saying what they personally, professionally, I mean, from their personal career, what they have gained from being part of the champion program. That's also important, especially today with this great resignation and everybody, shifting, and people have, it's hard to attract talent, right? Because those videos could be also used to recruit for your company, right? I'm talking about the champion program, but I'm also saying, look at this opportunity the company gave me to grow and do something fun that I like, that I'm interested in. So I think those are all ways to show the value up the chain. Let's see, is there anything else? I would love to know more about the teams allowing Dataverse for free. I started years ago. My experience mostly, yeah, obviously I can't do it in this session, but maybe we can connect. I'm happy to, I'm just happy to talk through it, or present at some other user group or something about it. Maybe I can find some materials. Maybe I can find some reference materials as well. Obviously, there's other people who have done like 1 million videos on it. Microsoft acquired Ally.io. Yes, although my understanding is that's more about, that's kind of more about strategic planning, but maybe I don't understand it. So yeah. Any other questions about this? Okay, let's move on. I really enjoyed the questions. Thank you so much. Thank you for interacting, because it's really hard to talk for a long time and and have no interaction. That's a part of it in life, in real life, that I miss a lot. Gamer that I am, I still miss in real life. So story number 3. So this is something you can get your champions excited about, and I think it's kind of cool. So if you haven't seen this, there is such a thing as the champion management platform out there that you can download and install in your environment. It is built using the SharePoint framework and React. So this is not, it looks like a Power App. And in fact, I think there is somebody who has made a Power App that imitates it. So you may want to do that. The app is deployed to the SharePoint tenant catalog, and it syncs to Microsoft Teams. It does require that a SharePoint admin install it. So if you're in an environment where you can't do that and you can't ask for it, that's not for you. And it does have, it comes with sample content. The sample content right now focuses mostly on Teams adoption, which is not bad. But if you want to, you can add whatever kind of sample, whatever kind of content you want. Just don't get turned off when you look at it and you see that it's mostly about Teams. And I think it's perfect for kickstarting the program, whether you're kind of restarting or starting from scratch. It gives you interactive gamification. It's embedded in Teams where, most of the action is, right? Most people have adopted Teams in some way. And you can have it up and running really in less than an hour, no kidding. Although you do need to spend some time, configuring it, right? Making it your own. And I do hear somebody who's not muted. So if you could mute yourself, that'd be good. So the champions have a view. When the champions come in, they see things like, the leaderboard and all these kinds of things. And they have a dashboard. So basically what's happening here is you have your champions and each of them gets points. They fill out a little form that says, hey, I did this thing. And then they get points. And, then at the end, you can give prizes or whatever. So they here, they're adding activities and they accumulate points. Sorry for the word break there. And they compete against other champions so that you can do these little tournaments. So you can have a 2-week tournament where you say, okay, in these 2 weeks, we're going to see how many people can do X, right? And then, so again, this is up to you how you use this. And what's neat about this is it has this little digital badging. So it comes with this little C. And if you get awarded the badge in this app, it will actually show up on your profile picture everywhere in M365, which is really neat. But you can make your own badges too. So there are ways to add digital badges if you have people who can do that for you. So that's kind of very cool. Now, if you're an administrator, when you log in, you see these are the other options you see, right? Okay, before we get to that. And so this is where you would enter the things that you want people to do, right? What are the things, we're starting a tournament. What's in the tournament? If, here are the activities you get points for, here are how many points, stuff like that. So I wanted to bring this up because I think this is really neat. A lot of folks really respond to, gamification. There are some organizations where it falls flat, though, I will tell you. So I think you just have to know the culture of your own organization, whether that kind of tournament spirit makes sense for you. But I think it is a good way to get people either excited or re-excited, for sure. I've seen it. Now, we talked about you need a story to tell, and you should, before you start or restart your champion program, you should know these 3 storytelling principles. This is actually right from the Microsoft Champion site. I think it's wonderful because it's not something if you are rolling out a technology project, it's not, you're often not thinking about these kinds of things, but you need to. So there are 3 storytelling principles that you need to think about how you're engaging your champions, and then teaching your champions about how to engage their constituents, right? And that is, we want to hear stories about real people. And that's partly why I told you actual client stories here, because I'm trying to, eat my own dog food. And now my headset is telling me the battery is low. Oh, that's evil. Okay, give me 1 minute. Totally forgot about that. So we want to hear stories about real people. We want to hear the ups and downs. So we don't want to just hear what went right. We need to hear what went wrong, because otherwise people don't believe it, right? And it's people that help each other really thrive. So what you want, your main goal in a champion program, aside from, accomplishing your mission of rolling out whatever you're rolling out, is to build a community that's self-sustaining. Build a community of champions that support each other. Not that you're doing all the work of supporting them. You're providing the framework and the tools, but the ideal scenario is you build a self-sustaining community. Just give me one second to plug in my headset. I'm still old school and I use a headset, so what can I say? I don't like earbuds. So just think about that. Now, let's get into the meat. Let's get to the heart of the matter here. So we're doing well on time. Let's talk about this 8-week Kickstart program, which I have used successfully in organizations, let me tell you. However, before you begin, you should be able to answer these questions. You should know who the champion program's executive sponsor is. Now, you may say, well, that's it for me because I can't get an executive sponsor in my organization. Been there, done that. It's okay if you don't have an executive sponsor. I get it. You're going to do your program. You're going to fly it under the radar. But eventually, you're going to get an executive sponsor as you show your wins, right? So if you don't have one to start out with, your first goal, aside from starting the program, is to be on the lookout for who's going to help you. The second thing is you need to know the goal of your champion program. And like I said, it's both to help adoption in your organization of the tools you're trying to roll out, but also the secondary goal always has to be to create something that's to the extent possible, that's self-sustaining. And you may have other goals in your organization. Like, for instance, I rolled this program out in an organization that was also wanted to roll out an organization-wide change program. They wanted people to learn about change management, and this was kind of a pilot. So your program may have other goals as well. And that's the initial scope of the program. So do we want to roll it out to the whole organization first? Are we going to start with an office? Maybe you have multi-offices, or whatever makes sense for your organization, but you should think about scoping and stay within that scoping, because if you do have a sponsor, you will have promised your sponsor what that scope was, and you don't want to increase the scope. What stories will you tell? And we talked about that. So what can we tell? What stories can we tell about M365? What stories can we tell about other organizations? What, you come to sessions like this and you hear things. Those are stories you can tell. You pick up a lot. Who will be your founding champion? So who are the first people you're going to approach? So obviously you can get champions in one of two ways. You can have them volunteer, or they can be voluntold by somebody in their department. Clearly, ideally, we have champions who have volunteered and not been voluntold, but real life is such that it is that you are going to get some voluntolds. But I think when you think about your founding champions, they may be quite different from the champions you end up with next year. Both because, some of them will move on. That's just the natural state of it, as well as there'll be a bunch of voluntold people who will probably fall off, and other people will volunteer and replace them. So don't panic if you get a lot of voluntolds in your first champion group. Normally you'll find the right people if you keep recruiting. And recruiting for champions never ends, by the way. So that's important to keep in mind. And then you're going to draft a champions guide. And in this deck that I have, you're going to see that I have the shell of the champion guide for you to use. So when I'm done here, I'll give it to Ted, and I don't know how they distribute it, but whatever they do, hopefully you will get it. So this is a sample champion guide. And you'll see these slides are meant to be a starter deck. And all of the starter slides have this little starter ribbon on it, which of course you would remove. So you'll make this deck your own, but that's the idea. So the purpose of the champion guide is I have found that talking to champions is not enough. You need to tell them what to do. They need, especially in the beginning, they need specific activities to complete. Otherwise, they just don't know what to do. And people very often will be hesitant to join the champion program until they know, what do I really have to do? Like, what is really going to be my commitment? So having the guide up front helps people understand what their commitment is going to be. And people can say, gee, I think maybe I'm not the right person, or yeah, I'm really excited. Let me go. I'm already doing half these things, right? So it's very important to have some kind of materials for them, and the material, this guide guides them. It stays with them through the 8 weeks. So what I normally do is I will create a team, which we'll talk about in a minute. We'll create a team for champions. We'll upload this, and then everybody, has to download it, and they can either re-upload it with their name or keep it in their OneDrive, however they want to do it. And this is their way of following along with the program through the 8 weeks. So this describes what champions do in your organization. That's why I put "and what else," because I assume you're gonna, add to it. And here we're saying, what do champions do? They guide and coach, they evangelize, they give feedback, right? Specific things. This is probably the most important slide, especially when you're recruiting champions. You need to say what champions are not. They are not extra help desk people. They should not be spending more time on champion activities than agreed, because I have seen this. I actually, unfortunately, had a champion once who got let go because all they wanted to do was champion stuff, not their regular job. So I learned my lesson there. That was very sad. They're not their team's complaint department. That was a long time ago, by the way. They're not the complaint department, so don't come to me with every single that's not what they're there for, and so on. So you get the idea here, right? This is a very important slide. Add to it as you will. If you do have an executive sponsor, I like to have a quote from them here in the deck to remind everyone that the executive sponsor is paying attention to this program. Very effective. And then we're going to talk a little bit about change management, because your champions are change champions. They're not, yes, they're technical champions, but more importantly, they're change champions. So we do talk about that a little bit. We talk about understanding resistance to change. And then we give them an action plan. And the action plan I give my champions is based on, and you may have heard of this organization called ProSci. It's all about change and change management. And they have a change management methodology called ADKAR, ADKAR. And I give them something from each of those areas. So it is, when you're working with change, you want people to have awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and then reinforcement. And we're going to go through that. We use that. I use that in this deck. So the champion action plan. First, I want my champions to know up front. I want to be very transparent with them that there is going to be resistance. Now, some of them may be like, yeah, I'm pretty resistant, whatever. But you want them to know up front. You want to just put it right out there. Yeah, you're going to have people who are resistant to this change. So let's talk about how we're going to deal with it right now before we start. And these are the common resistance themes. And I ask them to fill out on this slide, and of course they can add slides after this. If people say, I don't have time. If people say, well, maybe this is an insecure platform. If people say, oh, another tool, etc. These are the most common resistance themes. But if you have others at your organization, like, we tried rolling out SharePoint 7 times and it didn't work, that kind of thing, right? How are you going to answer that? And I want them, in their own words, to try and answer those questions. At subsequent champion calls, we will go through those and talk through them. But I want them to think about it. So right up front, we're talking about resistance to change. And then for each of those, the ADKAR areas that I talked about, I give them specific actions to do. They are to fill in the notes or next steps, and to click, and to fill in a little thing. Did I do it or didn't? I just give them, those little things. This is not automated or anything. It's not fancy. There's no fancy stuff here. Right in the PowerPoint. If you want to make a list, you want to, do it in Dataverse for Teams, whatever, you can do it. But I kept this very simple. So for instance, for awareness, what are some of the things that I would suggest? This is not by the way, I wouldn't give this to them. I would actually this would be filled out for them, what I wanted them to do in the organization, but I'm not doing it for you because, you know, you'll do it. But some things are, give a 5-minute presentation about M365 to your team about the project. Send out an email update. And again, that 5-minute presentation, I would have supplied them with the deck for it. And they can do it, they can adjust it, but I give them something to start with. I never make them start from scratch ever. I give them, you know, providing them with communication materials to start with, super, super important. I would give them little email templates, nothing fancy. I mean, you know, because you often don't have, you know, a marketing department or an internal comms department that's going to help you with this. That's fine. Just something. So here's the wording. Here's your verbiage to start with. Here's a little picture, whatever. They can organize a Q&A for the project leads to come in and answer the team's questions or put up posters. I don't know if anyone still goes to the office, you can put up posters. That used to be a thing, okay? Again, desire. So again, when I provide this guide to my champions, these action items, something is written there. They then fill in the notes and they tick off whether they did it or not, right? And I give you some suggested desire activities. A really good one, the top two are really good. Host collaboration pain point session and just have them just write down, document issues. What do people not like about the tools they're using now versus, you know, and then we do an art of the possible session to say, well, you said you had a problem with, you know, collaborating with external vendors. So we're just going to run through this little demo and we're going to show you how one way that it might work in the future with these new tools. And we put together a little demo. People love that. And it gets people excited, right? That's how we get people to desire the change. And then knowledge, right? So you'll do things, and I didn't fill out this slide here. I guess that's where I ended up. Sorry about that. But again, these are, how do we give people knowledge? So you'll do trainings, you'll do lunch and learns, you'll do, right? And I might put that here, host a lunch and learn, have some, you know, whatever it is. And again, for ability and reinforcement. So once you've learned how to do it, you need opportunities to do it. Right? That's the ability part. I'm giving you the opportunity to do it. So you may ask your champions to do things like have a host a lunch and learn where everybody just practices doing stuff in teams, adding stuff to the same document or something like that. That's ability. It's not just knowledge, you're actually having them do it. And then how are you going to reinforce? So you're going to have, you know, bring somebody in to speak, or you're going to have somebody, maybe a different champion, come in and talk about a win that they had, things like that. So again, I'm filling this out for them, things we hope that they will do. And we also make sure that they know that this is not like a school. This is not a test. We're not saying you have to like check all these boxes. And if you don't do it, you should feel guilty. But these are the suggested activities to help you do it. And some of the champions will do them all and more. Some of them will do none. Usually those people will drop out. That's okay, because we probably want them to drop out anyway, whatever, it's not working out. They're not the right people. That, you know, they got a new project and now they have no time. Totally understandable, right? And as I said, I give them guidelines. And again, I haven't done that. I didn't put that here on purpose because it's just communication styles and methods are so different in every organization. But here I would put suggestions for communicating with the team and links to the files in Teams, in the champion team, for any samples that I'll be providing, or where those samples are. And we don't have them all at the beginning. Normally we add them during the course of, you know, the time. I give a timeline. When should you be telling people? So here's when you should do the 5-minute presentation. Here's when you should tell them that, you know, we're going to be migrating. Here's when, obviously this has to do with your project timeline and the scope of your project. So, but you get the idea. We always have a timeline to say, when should you be telling people about stuff? We list our weekly champion calls. If we have weekly calls, monthly calls, however we do it, we list it here. What are the dates so they don't forget? They can't say they didn't know. even aside from the invite. I give them some very basic Microsoft learning resources. I try to be very respectful of their time, and they normally appreciate that. I always say, what is the time investment? You know, I want them to know up front, if I start this video, how long is this video? That's super important, right? They need to know you respect their time. I will always promote Microsoft's Champion program because I think it's awesome. And this service adoption framework learning path, super cool. It's a total of 2.5 hours of effort, but you get like a really nice little certificate at the end. It's not an official certification, but it's something cool for them. And it does talk a lot about change management, so I think it's really good. So that's the end of the sample. That's the end of the sample deck that, you know, I was talking about. And again, the more input champions have in crafting the program, the more successful it'll be. And I'm going to now go through the 8 weeks, week by week, the meeting agenda and everything. But before I do that, does anyone have any questions about the champion guide and the ideas behind it? Recharge after those gaming sessions. Thank you, Benjamin. Anybody here play World of Warcraft? Nobody? Oh, come on, you're hurting me. That's all right. We have Call of Duty people here or something. Okay, so we'll go on. So now we're going to go week by week, and I'm going to give you your suggested. Several of us play. Oh, yay! Okay, good. We're going to go week by week and talk about what I would cover each week and kind of where we want to get to at the end of the 8. Bloodhoof, nice. Okay, Ted. All right, that's good. Oh, Bloodhoof. Okay. So what are we going to do each week? So week 1 will be our kickoff meeting with our founding champions. However we recruited them, or they were voluntold, whatever. However that happened. Week 2, we're going to install and configure that champion management program, and we're going to post our champion materials to the teams. We will have created our team. Week 3, we're going to launch the CMP. That's the champion management program. We're going to launch the CMP. We're going to have a meeting with our champions about it to talk about it. Week 4, the first tournament begins. And obviously, in the first tournament, a lot of those activities will correspond to our awareness activities that we put in the guide, because we want to get them kick-started doing that stuff, right? Week 5, we're going to have a lunch and learn session, because obviously our champions need to learn, be as knowledgeable as possible. Week 6, we're going to say the first tournament ends. So that was a 2-week tournament, right? Week 7, we're going to start our monthly champion call. So we're going to have a monthly, normally the cadence is monthly, because, you know, more than that, it's too much. Those first couple of weeks, we have a lot of meetings, but then we're going to get to a monthly cadence. We're going to recognize our tournament winners. And week 8, we're going to share our stories on our intranet and or Viva Connections and start soliciting more champions. We're already going to start doing that on week 8. So let's have a look at how this goes. So week 1, we're going to do our kickoff workshop, and this would be my agenda for the workshop. We're going to have an overview of the draft. I'm going to call it a draft, champion guide and discussion, although I will have all those, you know, awareness, desire, I'll have those filled out. We'll have an overview of the CMP and discussion of what they think are appropriate KPIs, like what should we be measuring in the CMP, right? Because I want their input on that. I want to already solicit volunteers to run future meetings, because if you're the owner of this program, your goal is to facilitate discussions, not lead them. Now, eventually, that won't happen right away, but the goal is that you're the facilitator and you're kind of the, you know, tier 3 support. I don't know what you want to call it, but you're facilitating. Eventually you're not the driver that they're driving. And you want to set that tone right away. You want to see if you can find anyone to assist in the install, even if they just watch. It's cool. Some people like it. If they're techie, they want to see how it all works, and assign any follow-up. So what I would have folks doing at this point is, giving me input, letting me know input on the champion guide. Do you think there's anything we need to add, take away, etc.? So week 2, we're going to install and configure the CMP. I'm going to update and post the champion. If I got any feedback from the meeting, I'll update the champion guide. I'm going to post that to the team. I'm going to keep the first tournament pretty simple. Maybe there's 4 or 5 things that you can do, and then, whoever reaches it first or whatever. I'm going to monitor. It's important that you monitor the team, because people are going to be having suggestions, comments, right? You need to be in there monitoring the team. And hopefully your implementation is at a stage where you do have teams. If you don't, then you'll have to do this via email. Please don't do it on Slack. I'll just cry. Okay, just don't. Just, if you do that, don't tell me. So on week 3, you're going to launch the CMP. This is your meeting agenda. Every meeting, you want to get them used to the timeline review, because that's the "you are here" moment. Where are we in all this? Put it in context for me. And when I say "you are here," I don't just mean in terms of the champion program. I mean in terms of your overall roadmap for whatever it is that you're getting the champions for to roll out, right, to adopt. And so on. You're going to discuss rewards and perks, again, whatever's appropriate in your organization. Review the rules, share the app with the champions, and they actually have to sign up. And the good thing, I didn't say this, but the CMP has the facility to have, you can publish it in Teams, and you can let other people come and say, "Oh yeah, I want to be a champion," and they can actually sign up, and you can approve them and add them. So again, remember, we're always recruiting champions. Okay. At this point, you want to ask, how can we help you feel supported? This is a question you should get used to asking, and ask it all the time. You should ask it at every meeting, because this is how you help prevent your champions feel burned out. Because you need to open the floor and let them say, "Well, this thing is happening. My boss is telling everyone that, Teams is stupid not to use it, and our unit is going to use Teams, and we're never going to, we've all been there, right?" So this opens that conversation. This opens the door to that conversation. Okay. So week 4, the tournament begins. You're here now. You're going to start preparing for the following week's lunch and learn. Now, it's ideal if a champion can present, even if it's one champion that talks about something for 5 minutes. Doesn't matter. That's ideal. But at this point, that may not happen. That's okay. And the possible topics for this first one are some of these, right? Like dealing with resistance to change, or even tips and tricks for teams, or finding information, or creating your first canvas, whatever you think is going to get them excited. Okay. And that they need to hear. You're going to do that first lunch and learn. Hopefully you're facilitating and or presenting. You're not just presenting by yourself, but if you have to, that's okay. Make sure you do it in Teams. If Teams is rolled out already, obviously, if it's not, you can't. But again, if you have Teams and you use Zoom for this, you failed. That's it. Don't call me ever again. And make sure to obviously continue to monitor. Week 6, the tournament ends. You're going to prep your digital badging. You'll set up the second tournament. You'll prepare, so this is guide by guide for you every week, what you're doing, right, for this program. Here's your agenda for the 7th week. You're going to now be distributing your meeting schedule, hopefully for the next 6 months, so that people know when those monthly meetings are. Keep asking, how can we help you feel supported? The most important question you can ask your champions. I would ask that every week. There is a part of the meeting every week where I will say, okay, how can we help you feel supported? And shut up. You didn't know I could be quiet, right? Share success stories and congrats via the intranet and Viva Connections. Now, this is where, on the 8th week, this is where the person who asked about, showing the value up the chain, this is where you start showing the value up the chain. So hopefully you're going to work, however you can post news to SharePoint. And again, it's going to depend in larger and smaller organizations how that happens, how many people you have to go through. But you should have already planned for this, that in the 8th week, you're going to post something to the intranet. Everyone should know you're going to, if your organization is using Viva Connections, you want to have a dashboard, either you created or have a dashboard card created, however it works in your organization, that is targeted to the audience of the champion team. And you're going to promote a tournament, and you're going to, and you're going to post some success. This is what our champions achieved so far. They did this, they met with the thing, somebody created something, somebody did something they could never do before, whatever it is. And if you do have an executive sponsor, on the 8th week, you should have something to show them. Make sure you close the loop and give them some report of what has happened so far. So obviously, I'm just taking you through the first 8 weeks, but of course, then the real work begins, right? Then you're doing your monthly meetings, and you're dealing with change management, and you're dealing with, and this is where then your experience as either whoever you are, whether you're a technology person or an HR person or change management and adoption part, whatever your role in the organization is, this is now where your work begins to help these champions through this journey as the organization then is rolling out whatever new tools are being rolled out, right? So far we discussed the synergy between champions and citizen developers, and we talked about ways to take advantage of it. We saw how using Power Platforms for Teams and Viva Connection helps some other organizations engage more champions. And I hopefully gave you some real world success stories there. And we stepped through the 8-week roadmap with our suggested activities and the materials to get you started. So I actually ended earlier than I thought I would, so I apologize for that. Normally there are more questions, but thank you for the person. Thank you, Jesse. And you're saying, is this published anywhere online for at least the slides? Yeah, Ted, do you know, I'm not sure how the slides get published. I send them to you and you're able to publish them, or how does that work?
Yeah, we actually publish them on our website.
Perfect. So these will be published. But that's a great question, Jesse. So when you say additional details, what other sorts of things would you like to see? That's a good question. What else? How can I help you feel supported? Let me know. Anybody else? What other materials? Let's see. Oh, great. How do you go about creating visibility? Do you post about it on the intranet, word of mouth, other suggestions? Timely presentation, just rolling out champions platform. Nice. Okay. Nice, Joy. Thank you. So how do I go about, thank you, Benjamin. How do you go about creating visibility that this program is available? Yeah, so again, this is really going to depend on your organization, your role in the organization, who you have to go through, right? So ideally, if you have an intranet, ideally you will post about this on your intranet, that this is coming, that this is a new program that's coming. Ideally, you will get support. I mean, I didn't talk about this because it's can be a difficult topic in some organizations. But when I'm starting up a champion program, while we're still doing the initiation kind of phase of the project, I try, it isn't always successful, but I try to get buy-in from the organization that champion activities will be added to the person's job description so that the time and effort they put in on champion activities is reflected in their evaluation. So again, I can't always get that. and sometimes you can't get it the first year, but you can get it the second year once you've proven the value. And the reason I say that in the context of your question is because if I've got buy-in that champion activities will be added to the person's job description and that they will be evaluated on their champion activities, then normally I can get HR, the HR folks, to help me publicize the champion program, right? So how your program starts out will very much determine how you're going to publicize it. But again, ideal places are like an all staff, meeting or town hall kind of thing where you will get up and talk about, you may want to tag team this, right? So if you are the IT department, then you can talk about it when you talk about, we have this new thing rolling out, right? Or if you're not IT, you can tag team with IT. And when they talk about the new thing rolling out, you can then come and say, and this is how we're going to manage the change. This is how we're going to, right? This is how we're going to roll it out. And it's often good to show the champion guide just very quickly. Like, obviously, you're not going to go through every slide, but show that you have such a thing. Show that you have a structured change management program and show how you're going to support the champions, because you're much more likely to get people to volunteer if they know, oh, this is how I'm going to be supported. They're going to tell me what to say. Okay, I can do that. They're going to give me the email. Okay, I can do that, right? So, but beyond that, it's hard to say how to publicize the program because, internal comms in every organization is different. So, and some people have to go through a lot more hoops than others. Thank you, Beth. Thanks for that, by the way. Other questions, comments, concerns? Has anyone tried something like this and it didn't work? I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear what has worked for you or what hasn't worked for you. You may not want to say it on a recording, I know. I get it. But no, hoping to. Yeah, great. Thank you, Mike. Well, I hope this was a useful session. I mean, even if you don't use this guide and you don't use all the techniques, I hope that you can pick and choose pieces from it. And if you are somebody who's in a situation, and I have been there, yeah, looking to start, who wants to start a champion program, but just can't get buy-in, buy-in from anybody else. This is where, again, I'm going to go back to your citizen developers. Find some citizen developers and band together and kind of start an informal support group. And you'll be surprised how far you can get with that. You can get a lot of traction just doing something like that. Yeah, I think they burned out. They're ready to be reactivated. Yeah, I agree. A lot of folks are in that same boat. But here's where, if you have a new story to tell them, I think this is a way to get them reactivated. Yeah. So Ted, I see you came back.
Yeah, I did. I was going to, I'm going to put up the survey
Perfect.
link right now. And ask everybody to go out there and fill that all out. Also, I am going to do the giveaway here. So
Great.
I'm going to go to my random number generator. And I'm going to figure out who we're getting it. Oh, let's see here. And it's going to be Sean Klein.
Woohoo, Sean.
So Sean, if you'll send me your email address, I'll have that $25 gift certificate sent out to you by our treasurer of the user group. And you guys are seeing the link to the survey, correct? Please fill that out. And then also remember, you need to be here at the end of the day for the final drawing, but we are giving away a Surface Go after the final session. So make sure
Wow.
you show up for that. Yeah,
You got some good sponsors.
we don't do bad. That's fantastic. And so you know that for most people, I think, coming up, we do have a session over lunch. So make sure you hang around for that. I know you're going to have to probably grab some lunch, but that's the beautiful thing about working virtually is it's easy to multitask, and just to make sure you're on mute while you chew. So yeah,
All right.
Joel Olson, I Microsoft mixed reality, the metaverse, and mesh for teams. I have no
Wow.
idea what he's going to
Wow.
talk about. I'm going to absolutely
Well,
attend
I'm
that.
glad he's after me and not before me because I wouldn't want to follow that.
Yes, I've seen Joel talk a couple times.
Wouldn't want to follow that. Well, thank you so much. Sorry I ended a little earlier than I thought. I guess I thought I was going slow, but I guess I wasn't. I hope you found it useful. It was a pleasure to be here, Ted. Thank you so much for the honor.
Oh, thank you for coming, Andrea. We talked a little bit about the World of Warcraft. I think my dad played Zangarmarsh, actually.
Really?
Yes, he
Aw.
did. It's a PvP server,
PvE.
isn't it?
No,
PvE?
Zangarmarsh is PvE. Yeah.
My
Yeah.
dad was a big PvP.
Oh, was he?
Well,
PvP
that
player?
was his favorite. Yeah, he loved arenas. And
No, that's not for me. I'm not.
yeah, me neither. I just get but my son and my dad are into it. I would get my butt handed to me.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
All right.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody else, folks. We'll see you this afternoon in the adoption track if you come back. All right. Thank you.